Good evening, everyone. Maybe the room become a bit more silent. Thanks a lot, because otherwise it's impossible to even hear myself. Not speaking of my guests today. Welcome to the State of Tech at das Klassentreffen. I'm Stefan. I'm one of the 3 MDs at A11. I'm also CTO, so I have a background in computer science. I've worked 10 years in that CTO role now. Worked with plenty of companies, I think 85. I look into our history, so it's quite a lot. Held several interim roles. But I'm not the most important person here in that room, obviously, today, but it's my 3 guests, and I'm super happy to introduce you to them. Next to me is Christian Renick. He's born and proud Austrian, I most likely say. He has studied business computer science. He is currently the CEO and the co-founder of Tomorrow University of Applied Science, which is like a state-recognized institution teaching, and I think that's the relevant part, future technology entrepreneurship. He was, and I think that's also interesting and remarkable, CTO and MD at N26. Now, I think if you look into the room, I assume there is kind of a couple of your former, at least, clients, right? They're hopefully still at N26. He was also CEO at Vivi, so brings quite a complex experience with him. And I think one really interesting anecdote or fact is he helped to actually launch kind of a shared meal program for the UN world, which is something that is, I think, creating something good in the world, and that's always good. Next to me, someone who, interestingly, you could say is a former colleague of mine, and I would actually say, okay, that's Felix Haas from Lovable. He started his career back in the days, I would even say, at Project A, at the operational unit. So happy to see you back here. He is a founder. He is a designer. So he built multiple products with Gorilla, so SAP, with Arai, Mapify, and so on and so forth. He's an investor and community builder, co-founding several companies, was design residence at Creandum, so also very well known. VC is angel investor in multiple startups. And now, and I think that's also the relevant part for that discussion today, he's working at Lovable. Anyone here who has not heard of Lovable? Okay, I assumed so. So full-time position, right? I think is one of the fast-growing startups in history. He also angel investor, so congrats to the 1.8 billion funding round. Very happy for you. But I'm even more happy to have you on stage and have that discussion with you and our colleagues today. Last but not least, on the stage is Dr. Kirill Panov, proud Macedonian, North Macedonian colleague, exactly. He has a PhD in computer science and more specifically data exploration techniques. And if you think of AI using obviously data as a foundation, I think he's very well equipped for the current time that we're living in. He's also VP of Data and Software Engineering at A11. He's working very close with our clients in the portfolio across all of the different pillars of data and software engineering, obviously. He worked with companies like Sender, Trade Republic in the past, to just name some of them, and that covered everything from data on one hand, right, building scalable platforms, to also building the digital products behind. So maybe a short applause for the stage. Great to have you. And what we'll talk about is what we call state of tech, right? And I think one relevant question is, if you think about the state of tech, it is actually that it seems that our craft and that what we're doing, to be very honest, is eaten up by AI. If you remember, and we had just had it in a panel before, like 3 years ago, when ChatGPT kind of as the state-of-the-art LLM, and if you say rise of AI, at least in the broader people's life came across, everyone said, hey, you become a software engineer, become a data engineer, become a data scientist, you will have a software, as you will always have a job, right? So software is eating the world, we're building software, everything is fine. Super safe, future-proof. If I look now at my son is like 12 years old, right? So he's still some time to study. I have no clue what to recommend him to actually study or maybe do in the future. And I think we are currently looking into 2 directions. And one is rather the dystopian direction, right? Don't study, no one is hiring juniors anymore. Experienced people are afraid of losing their jobs, right? So, hey, AI is coming, it's killing me. We had that publications of papers from Google 2030, right? AGI is coming here, maybe even 2027 with that superhuman. We will all become unemployment, 99%, we all die. That's dystopia, obviously, right? If you look into the other direction, maybe that's also the hopeful part. And what we actually see is that AI is taking away all of the tedious work, right? So people have more time to not type and write code or whatever they do, right? Or write text or descriptions or specifications or documentation, whatever else. But they will concentrate on creating concepts, products. They will create more value with just the same amount of time. We have new business models, right? We have world peace, obviously, right? Climate change will disappear. All of that is solved, and we will live endlessly. So, and I think the core question is what we will discuss kind of in next minutes is exactly how that influences us and how we foresee the future that will come at the end, but rather focusing on part. And we start with the topic of how AI is changing entrepreneurship. We had a couple of startup people here. That's obviously what we love and do. And Felix, I would like to start with you, to be honest, with the first question, because I mean, Lovable is right now at the forefront of AI building products. And I think it would be very interesting to get a bit of understanding how, let's say, compared to, 8 months was kind of the trajectory, right? Let's say 10 months ago, how has the whole innovation entrepreneurship model changed in that times? And what is actually the state of art? So what are people building with Lovable?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you so much for having me. It's really, really great to be back. I think when Lovable started, which was approximately actually 2 years ago, but I'd say 1 year ago, we found product market fit. In the beginning, it was basically this tool that would just support you to kind of bring an idea to life, right? And talking about bringing an idea to life, in the beginning, that was mainly a website, right? So when you had an idea, then you would usually go to Webflow, Framer, or you would even teach yourself, some of the front-end skills yourself. But the idea with Lovable was that, hey, why don't you just chat with a tool through natural language and you give your ideas as an input and then the output is a simple website. So that's how it started. And while many, many people have built websites with Lovable, I guess we then quickly saw that, that's just the beginning, right? You can build a website, you can build an app. The vision is building an entire company using Lovable. And so if you ask me, what has changed, then I would say definitely basically this journey from people building websites to now we're at a point where we actually have hundreds of thousands of people using Lovable to build companies. And we're already thinking about how do we enable our creators to not just build those products, but actually, distribute them, make a business out of them. Think about monetization, product market fit, all these things. So it's actually now way more than just the creation part. And I think that's incredibly exciting.
You mentioned that part of fast development, right? So you just chat, you phrase your idea, and then something comes up. Now, I would rather say that natural language, it's not very deterministic, right? So it's very hard to express what you actually want to achieve. And then maybe Kirill, Christian, looking in your direction, right? I mean, you're at N26. It's a bank, obviously, right? And I think the core question that I asked myself, and I think we also had it in a conversation with Nina earlier, right? Where she said, okay, build something that can scale. And I think the interesting question to both of you would be, is that something that you currently trust Lovable to be a good foundation to really build a business that scale? And I see smiling faces here. Sure. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's what we did want to discuss. But maybe Christian, you would go first, right? So what's your take on that?
It's interesting. I think it's really interesting because so many things are changing. And I shared with you, Stefan, already the story before. But so at Tomorrow University, we're also building our own software for learning, actually. And one of my software engineers actually quit. Yeah. And I said, oh my God, why are you quitting? And he's been 3 years with us. He's a great engineer. He's senior. But he said, hey, Christian, listen, I love engineering. I love actually coding, the act of coding, And this AI here, it takes away this part of what I really love with my job, yeah. Because now I'm so much faster actually using AI to develop my code. So my job is changing actually. And this made me very sad because he's really a great engineer, but I also understand it, yeah. So, and I think now Lovable or there are also other tools, but the tools, they have advanced since the last 50 years, when I was growing up, there have been other tools from VI, developing a code with VI was very different. And my father, he was working at Philips. He was actually working with assemblers. Imagine, today it's not imaginable anymore to work with assembler code. So it's not yeah, it's really something tough, shifting bits around, really zeros and ones. Yeah. And for me, it's a very natural evolution, to be honest, of AI is a really amazing way to create better tools to help you speed up, get better results. And yes, there are still a few assembler developers, but there are not many. There are still people who use and develop eventually with AI, not many. And I think you see that the tool, if they become easier, it provides access. It provides access to more people actually creating beautiful solutions, beautiful applications, solving problems. And that's what I'm excited about, And I'm not judging now about Lovable, but I think that the direction I fully agree with. And I think that tools which we had maybe 2 years ago for engineers or for in general people who wanted to solve problems, they are not the same anymore. And I think we will see in the next 10 years just those tools becoming so much better.
But if I catch it up right and actually say, yes, these tools will become better, would you run a bank on that? Or would you run trade a public sender on that, right? So, is that going into a direction where you actually say, I feel super comfortable while using natural language for prompting and letting AI develop an application to bring that into, let's say, the finance system, into whatever world?
So another example today, my co-founder, and we had a board meeting today, and my co-founder, he wanted to create a presentation, and he hates creates presentations. So he said, okay, I want to have this picture with a German text, now just with English. So nothing easier than that, to go to their favorite AI and say, hey, please translate the text to English and create a picture new. And he really fails. He tried all the different AI tools and he failed. So it's not like everything is working already. It's not perfect. And also if you use Lovable, there will be things which you cannot, and we will struggle with it. Yeah. So I think we are still on the path. So if you're saying, do I build a bank with it? It depends on which tools for what I would use. Yeah. I'm thinking we are using AI, and at N26, we started to use AI for just very simple things like categorization, Now we are using easily AI in, for example, customer service. I don't think most financial institutions are now using AI in customer service, at least, So I think we will see this advancing, and it's not a question if, it's a question more of when.
Understood. Now, maybe Kirill, looking over to you, right? Leading teams that, on the one hand, partly use something like Lovable, Replit, whatever else, right? On the other hand, still do kind of AI accelerated software engineering. If you compare, let's say, results of what a software engineer can do, maybe AI supported, maybe not, right? Like the person that quit, versus what Lovable creates as a result, right? Is that something that you would also see on the same level when it comes to future topics of scalability, of maintainability, of like developing stuff further, maybe than without like a vibe coding or natural language tool? Is that something you foresee to happen, or is it something you say, to open a contraposition, to be very honest, that's like script kiddies on steroids, sorry for the exaggeration, right? But at the end, you can't use these results, because if you really want to have a solid application, you need to do it yourself. It's a good starting point, cheap iterations, right? But if you want to have the real result, then you need to do it yourself.
Yeah, I'm of the opinion that it's a hard yes. It's a starting point that you need to evolve and continue to build on. It kickstarts things. It helps you validate a lot of things. But when it comes to maintainability and scalability, it's still far off. So, this whole vibe coding thing, I think the confusion that exists in our industry is that everything that is helped by AI is considered vibe coding, while the definition that it's actually true or should be taken is that everything generated by AI and then not checked, but you accept it to come into your code base, is vibe coding. Everything else, if you're actually, as a person, a developer who knows what they're doing and understands systems and design and how this should fit into the bigger picture, that's AI-assisted development. And then, for me at least, there's a huge difference. And I strongly believe in AI-assisted development. For vibe coding, and we live in a world where everything is black and white. There's no shades of gray. So now I will be labeled as the skeptic here, but this is not the case. There is absolutely a place for vibe coding and tools like Lovable. I mean, it's amazing to have a tool that you can bring something to life, ideas to life, you said before, and then you can quickly iterate and validate. And I mean, also to just give you a starting point to continue to develop. It's a incredible opportunity and something that we didn't have before. It's just, I think the whole point will be to try to understand where the use is valid and to use it appropriately.
I think what I find just super interesting is when you think about how the process of building and launching a product just entirely changed through AI. And so it doesn't matter if you're an engineer or not. I think maybe as a quick side note, right, the mission of Lovable is to enable the non-engineers out there to build products. But I also believe that even for engineers, it's quite a powerful tool because it allows you to incredibly quickly put something into the market and actually test it with real users. And that's just like accelerating the whole process of, trying to find product market fit. Like it's incredibly hard, right? Finding product market fit. But I think the way you do it is by putting something out there and like getting feedback on it and seeing if people would actually convert and pay for it. And that's what we're like trying to enable. Doesn't matter if you're an engineer or non-engineer. It's all about you have this idea in mind and you can vibe code it with Lovable, put it out there, see if it gets traction. And if yes, pull in engineers, pull in your team, pull in your marketing team and like make it big. But I guess for us, it's all about this like time gap between the short gap between ideation and then validation, right into in the market and like in a real world environment.
You want to keep customers, so most likely you will try to allow them to make this a long-lasting product, right?
I mean, honestly, if we're completely honest, right, like most of the tools that started with Lovable, first of all, they started all like a year ago or like a couple of months ago, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not that old. But we do see that now some of the companies that started through Lovable are actually scaling. And then it obviously makes sense to bring in, more people into the team, that take care of the code base and everything else. But what we're focusing on right now is like really this like early stage, pre-seed validation.
I think it's an interesting point because I think the part of what is your current kind of ideal customer profile, right? So people who just want to quickly start, iterate. I think product managers and maybe see our salespeople building products of Lovable or Replit, whatever else, right? To just quickly validate if there is a market for that. And I think that makes a lot of sense. What I would like to understand is also, again, Kirill, looking in your direction, right? So how has the way of working changed for a senior software engineer, right? I think like if you rewind like, let's say 2-3 years back, it was very clear and hasn't changed so much for the last, let's say 10 years, right? With the changes that we see with AI, what are the changes that happen, right? So how does a software engineer like work in 2025 in the age of AI?
Yeah, I mean, it has changed a lot for sure. Of course, there's a spectrum here as well. So there you have a different level of adoption by the people. So, you have people that actually avoid using AI and they're still very good. So I think that it's a misconception to think that if people don't use AI now or software developers don't use AI, that they're worse at their job. So there will be people that have a workflow that works for them. But I think for the majority of people, it's a absolute no-brainer. And everybody has adopted it somehow in their workflow. I mean, you have all this Cursor and Copilot and all the tools like that. So in terms of like ideation, kind of boilerplate code writing, all this is aided by AI. I think the tricky part is, I see people in the office, you see them sitting around for a moment, and this is kind of when they're waiting for the result from the prompt, and then okay. So I think that the tricky part will be to try and figure out how to use this time efficiently, because you're gaining something. But so maybe you work on multiple features, and this is already happening as well. So kind of to a certain extent, the job or the role of software engineer is becoming a refactorer and code review expert validator. But as long as I would say the problem is scoped well enough and it's small enough, then people are reporting that there is very good use of AI. For wider systems, it's more complicated.
May I ask a question? Because it's also interesting. How do you think does the job actually scope stay the same in your team? So do software engineers still focus on software engineering, or do they take on a little bit more product management, a little bit more design, a little bit more project management? So how is the roles changing from your?
Yeah, this is the thing now. So in theory, like getting the efficiency from AI enables time. I mean, this is debatable. Sometimes it's the case, sometimes it's not the case. But I think that more and more people can do some kind of like product development, like the ideation stuff, like that you can bring something that and especially in design, it helps a lot of the developers to kind of figure things out there. But at the end, I think there's actually service and results on this, so that developers spend on a good day, on the best day, 80% of their time developing code. So there was in AWS actually that...
Was that before AI or after AI?
Before AI. Yeah. So there was in AWS that 20% of the time developers are developing code. Everything else is meetings and alignments and whatnot. So if you think about, like, if you're optimizing this 20% of the time, you're not getting like too much of it. So everything around it is becoming easier. And I think in every job, the usability of the tooling is there.
I would like to make one addition to that, because I think we look at that from a senior software engineer or software engineering perspective. I think it's also the same way, other way around. If you look at a product manager nowadays, right? I mean, there's a strong enablement, and you could actually say, oh, a product manager don't need to wait for an engineer to have time to build like a proof of concept or MVP, whatever else, right? To validate whether the idea they have is a real good idea, and whether it brings like meaningful feedback from users, but they can just do it themselves. And I think the interesting question would be if you look towards the future, whether it's just getting smaller teams over the same team size, you get the same way more outcome, not output, maybe also output, right? But actually that roles become or come closer, way closer together. I think that's something that can happen as well. One thing that I would like to add, and I think, Kirill, you mentioned it, we touched on that, right? You said, okay, software engineers are developing more into the direction of refactorers and reviewers and so on and so forth. Now, if you look at the task of refactoring or review, that requires experience. And at least in our ecosystem, I don't see junior developers being hired anymore, right? So everyone expects seniors to supervise AI, right, or the results. And Christian, maybe that's the question in your direction, right? I mean, you also partner with something like Lovable, like boot camps, where you actually educate and teach people to become a software engineer, and they typically start as juniors. But no one is hiring juniors. So how does it impact kind of also our future? Because at a certain point, I mean, we're also getting older, right? Especially me. Then there's no one left who can actually supervise these topics. And this will be the same for plenty of teams.
As mentioned, I think it's the roles are changing. And what you described with engineers, I think it's broadened the scope sometimes of the engineers. I think it would be true the same for entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs can now do so much more. They're not just business experts. They can look into marketing. They can eventually create the prototype now with Lovable themselves. There's so many more things, and I'm quite old, so I also remember before the internet. So many things which I needed more people, from bookkeeping experts, to start a company. Who needs a bookkeeping expert anymore? Luckily not, This is really has changed. And I think this is what we see now also is changing, that we're looking for different skill sets in the future. Also for juniors, I think it's not enough to go to just computer science class and get out and say, hey, I'm the super nerd and just can code excellent. This will not be you. I think you will struggle to find a job, to be literally here honest. And I think what we're looking for is more this T-shaped T-shaped skill set, but you actually have a broad understanding. Even as an engineer, you have a sense of business eventually. You have a good communication skill, You really understand how things fit together. And then also, if you are good, for example, in coding, then you can eventually create meaningful solutions. So I think the classical junior, mid, senior, principal, this engineering hierarchy or career path, I think they will change, and the skills for those paths will change from my perspective really fundamentally. And that's what I think also our education system is not preparing us for this quite well yet.
I think, just quickly on this one, I think what you just described, right? Like, I think education is completely changing, and how you talk about engineers going to school and then coming out and then are directly landing a job, right? 100%, that's no longer true. I would even argue that some of the best engineers out there probably didn't even go to school. And I think what's so funny is that, and the same is true for designers and other kind of people, I believe if you want to stand out in the world of AI today, it's all about building. Like constantly building, you learn by doing, and I think that has never been more true than today. And you don't need to go to school for this, especially like in design. Like I never went to design school actually, because everything that I learned was by kind of doing it. And back in the days, I was still trying to like watch lots of like YouTube videos and get into design and kind of figure out how it works. Today, your best teacher is AI, right? Like you just go out there and you use ChatGPT to pretty much ask any question you have, or Claude. And it helps you. And you can even ask us, hey, can you create a study plan for me? I want to get into, I don't know, UX design or front-end dev or whatever. And so looking at what are the kind of profiles that are interesting today, I think are, yes, education, but education changed. But then also real work experience. And you can ideally combine both, right? If you go to school, like you can still have a side project and just start something, play around in the market. No one's holding you back. And there's actually no limitation. You don't need capital. You don't need, a lot of like a large network. You can just start building something, put it out there, and then see where it goes.
I would like to make one point. I think we are talking quite a lot about starting something. We also have like millions of applications that are just existing. They need to be maintained. And yes, they will be maybe maintained, developed further with AI support. And the core question for me is a bit, if I think about the part of I have people or like the next cohort that's coming, they are AI educated, right? But AI only was used for let's start something. If you look into senior software engineers, I think your colleague is maybe a good example. What they typically have in mind is a way broader context, right? They think about security, they think about a whole architecture, how integrations work, all of that stuff. And my bet would be currently that if you just start to build stuff with any AI tool, right, you will not come to that point where you actually say, okay, now I understood how that whole context work. And that way I will not be able to actually replace like your colleague that left who had all of these contexts, but just say, I want to code, right? So happy to get your perspective on that. But I think for me, there's building up a gap in terms of knowledge and understanding how you currently build maintainable large software applications with all of that context in mind that something like Lovable can't and also not aiming for to solve, right?
Yeah, maybe just a quick one on this, because I believe that this you were talking about starting something as if this would be something that would only happen in like the early days of a company. That I don't agree with, because even companies like Spotify, Klarna, etc., they almost always face this challenge again of bringing out a new feature, coming up with a new dashboard or something. And so it's more like a process of, even as a large company, I think you always encounter this like, okay, we have a problem and we want to solve it. We don't have a solution for it yet. And so we need to create something and come up with something. And then I feel like the same process just starts over again of like, prototyping, validating, like figuring out what works, what not. And so actually, I don't really differentiate between pre-seed, seed, starting something, early stage founder, and like large corporate.
I do.
But
mean,
honestly, if you are looking to just talking about banks here, there are still banks operating with COBOL systems, and nobody wants to touch them. Dares even to touch them. So I think there will be some kind of gap with that we don't have maybe the right engineers to maintain old applications. I think just this gap was always there. Maybe it gets now a little bit bigger because the pace of innovation is accelerating from that perspective. And I think it will be a problem. But will it be a super large problem? I don't think so. I don't think it becomes like, it wasn't a super large problem. I mean, for some companies, yes, eventually, but I think it will not be a general roadblock for innovation for business. We will find solutions for that. And worst case, what will happen, I will pay you more for developing in COBOL, even though you don't like it.
Yeah.
But it just will become the best paid job then.
Kirill,
I mean, it's already happening.
Yeah.
Well paid, the COBOL developers.
Exactly.
I mean, I agree with you regarding like in big companies, in order to bring something to life, a new feature or a dashboard or whatever, that before maybe resources were scarce and there was a bottleneck, you needed developers or it needed to be put on a roadmap or whatnot. So now, if it's like a very kind of self-contained problem that you can isolate from the bigger system and architecture, absolutely, you can do that. But then if you are developing something that needs to be integrated into the system that you have to have the engineers who know the system itself so that they can figure out how this fits into the architecture. Because otherwise, if you're focusing only on building something that runs without thinking about security, optimization, how it fits into the architecture, then just you're blindly acquiring technical depth. And this it's like a flywheel. It will only get worse and worse. And at some point, it kind of breaks.
Yeah. I think, what makes a company go really like in a bad direction is just pushing things out that don't work, right?
Yes, we agree.
And I guess like that's what I think is still like very much valuable, even in larger companies, like, testing things before actually putting them out in production. I'd actually be curious to hear your take also on like early N26, because you guys been like, pushing out features after features back in the days. Obviously it was probably also like part of the product and design team, but I assume when you had this idea of like kind of building a new feature, you would probably staff immediately like actual engineering resources on it, right? And like actually try and like put it out there, which is quite a high cost.
We had a quite nice design process and user testing process. So what you would see is more like this bare bone, drawing and then testing with wireframes. So that's what we would do quite early on. Yeah, so it was not directly jumping into engineering, but it was not high fidelity mockups, what you would, or applications even now. So I think the fidelity of testing has improved, and
yeah, exactly.
10 years ago, I would do it with a pencil, and then we did it like this, also designs already, but still a wireframe not working. Maybe just like now with Figma, you can click on it, but that was it. Yeah. And now you can create a full application and really see the user using it. I think really that's a big advantage. I fully agree with this. Yeah, the speed and the knowledge you require to actually validating solutions. And I think it's not just that validating solutions, it's hard to express what you have in your brain.
Yeah,
it's very hard to get something what you have in your mind into something which you can actually communicate well. And I think tools like Lovable, but others as well, they help you to salespeople, you mentioned that, to salesperson to really make this express themselves better. So I think that's one of the benefits of it. It's just also a communication tool from that perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, for this, I think it's actually quite interesting, and there is data in the industry about like how this is bringing features to life and the role of product management, how is it changing. So there is a school of thought now that product roadmaps won't be necessary because you just so quickly can validate and bring things. I mean, there has to be a plan, of course. This we all agree, but this has been reported. And then like the product managers, because you can bring things so quickly in life, the most important thing will be designing experimentation frameworks and kind of A/B testing what works, what does not work, in order to know then what needs to be brought into the actual product.
Just to repeat this, when I developed at one point of time a website with Perl, it took me a long time to develop something with Perl, a web application. Now it takes me, I don't know, a website, basic one, it takes me not very long with Webflow, you put that, and now it gets even faster with Lovable, and I can create even more functions there. So it's I think it's a more natural evolution of tools which become just so strong and powerful now from my perspective. Yeah? And it changes a lot. It changes our roles, it changes our organizations. So I think this is what we are seeing and feeling, that there is change and there is this uncertainty as well, what this change means, because it's not very clear for 100% how this really will turn out. Yeah?
If we look a bit into the future, I mean, this is what we are having now, right? So let's say in the next 3 years, if we still live, obviously, right? Will it be just one single person from, let's say, business or maybe product, actually, let's say, run or oversee like a whole crowd of AI agents, let's say, right? Very abstract, developing the business, right? So is that the future we're looking into? I mean, you've seen nodding there and shaking their head there. So
I have my thoughts on it, but
my question is, will it be a unicorn, a one-person unicorn?
Yeah, sure.
So will there
maybe
be
a non-person unicorn, right? But
no,
let's see.
I don't believe in non-person.
Okay, not yet.
Let's talk about that. But I think will there be something where one person literally can build a company with the tools of AI to actually earn 1 billion? And I think this is something we can talk about now. Maybe it is in the next 3 years. It's maybe a little bit really quick, but I think it's something which, as mentioned, AI, it's some things work really well, some things don't. Yeah, so I think, we are in there's this Gartner hype cycle, and there is this slope of disillusionment. So we see also what doesn't work. It's not like everything is changing, everything is working with AI. It's not the case. There's some real problems still happening and some things which really still don't work. Yeah, so but we will now see this kind of core use cases working. And agentic AI is amazing systems. They're having agents actually taking care of something for you. This is something which has huge potential, and we are seeing this and we are applying this also at Tomorrow University. So, I'll give you an example. We have now, we had at the beginning of Tomorrow, we had as a sales admission team which have calling actually prospects. Now, if you go to tomorrow.university website and you download a brochure, we will also call you, but it's an AI agent which will call you. And the interesting thing about this is also that if you ask the people who get called now, who wants to be called by an AI agent? Okay, one person, nice. The interesting thing is that people prefer to being called by an AI agent than a person, actually, if you ask them. So it's really something which say that's possible. And this is, I think, just the first taste of what is becoming possible. So that's the reason why I think if we look into the future, it's, again, just a question of time when this is possible. I'm not saying it's now. I'm not sure about 3 years, maybe.
Happy to get your thought. I mean, Kirill, I saw you heavily disagreeing, kind of, and
No.
to where you are, Felix, right? But
Felix, please go.
So the question is still around like
what is the team of the future eventually, right? So
yeah. What I already see is that I think we'll have more and more builders like come out. I honestly think every one of us has ideas, right? And like every one of us has now the tools and capabilities to kind of put something out there. And I think that's just going to increase over time. So I actually think that we'll have like way more people starting something. Be it entrepreneurship, like actually starting something on your own, or be it in a larger company and then taking ownership and initiative to kind of just, put your idea into reality. I think we'll have like a huge increase, which also brings challenges. Because if you think about, what happens if everyone then out of a sudden like starts building something, right? Then you'll have like so many tools out there, and then how do you differentiate? How do you stand out? So that becomes the challenge, I think. The challenge is no longer building something. It's more like, how do you build something that works and that stands out and that, that maybe also conveys trust.
It differentiates. I think we had the panel before, right, where they say each LinkedIn post looks the same.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so the craft of the builder is more about understanding what is it that's worth building and what is it that's worth not to build. I think putting the emphasis on the not to build is going to be way more interesting. But I like truly believe that, we'll have so many more builders out there. And it's just beautiful to see because it's people from so many different industries. I was just talking to last week, I think, to an English teacher. and she's been building her own like, I don't know, education platform that she's now been using. She's never ever been like coding before. And these kind of things, or like when I see children like building apps, in their free time, that's just crazy to me.
Kirill, I mean, happy to get your thoughts because you seem to be rather disagree.
Yeah, I'm the skeptic in the group. We said in the beginning. No, I'm kidding. I agree. Like for the whole building stuff, I completely agree. And like this type of things that building an educational platform by a teacher, absolutely. Whether that platform can serve hundreds of thousands of people, that's a different thing. After, but all this will be possible. The barrier of entry is like much lower now, which is really cool. Regarding like how teams will look in the future, I think like it's kind of certain that teams will be smaller, which is also good. But if you ask any developer, they will tell you that there is diminishing returns in terms of team size. So they don't want to work on the same thing with 10 people. So small focused teams, I think that will make sense, and it's kind of already happening. And also what Christian said before, that people will be more in this kind of T-shaped. They will be more generalists. They will have more knowledge about it, or there are ways to get knowledge about things, which is very, very easy now.
Kirill,
It makes a difference.
Do you see in your company that the teams are more cross-functional?
Yes. I mean, Stefan said it. Like we actually had a salesperson building a Lovable demo and then showed it to the client that we were working with, and the client was like, "Oh, this is great." Now the challenge after that comes is you talk to the client, and the client thinks, "Okay, this was built in whatever 10, 20 minutes," and then you tell them, "But it will have to actually build the product. This will take, I don't know, 2-3 months," and they say, "But come on, how is that possible?" So it's challenging, but it enables so many people to do these kind of things, to actually create some kind of a product. This is absolutely possible.
I think maybe to adding to that, the thing that happened in that specific case as well is the customer was blown away, really great.
Yeah.
The core problem with that was it was even not technically possible to implement that in a production stage, right? So because we're not going into details, but that was just like impossible. And I think this is maybe one topic where senior software engineer would look at and would say, all right, yes, this and this, never going to work. I can tell you already now, right? So don't stick to that, but rather iterate and continue on that. But I think what I at least get is that kind of consensus of teams and ways of working will change, right?
And on an individual level, that like people being more like specialized are now transforming more into like a generalist position.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think the last question that I would have for that kind of chapter, if you want so, is if you think of large engineering teams in the past, we know, okay, it's going to change or disappear, right? Now, if I look into kind of industrial manufacturing, right, you have like a huge factory, you have 5 people operating that whole thing, right? Creating a lot of value for the company. Is that the future we're looking into, right? So maybe 5 people operating like a huge business. I mean, if I follow you, Christian, that one person unicorn, that would be the direction. But yeah, happy to get more thoughts on that.
No, but I absolutely see this. I think that this is what there is already. When you think about the agentic AI framework, there are like organizational frameworks. How can agents report to other agents, and how you can create structures actually of which are meaningful. And again, I think this is still the early days for this, but this is a very exciting future. It seems to happening also quite fast. So it's nothing where we have, if you're looking at the bigger scale, these innovation cycles where we have technologies like the internet or now AI is rolling out, it's just shortening. So the change is just bigger than ever before, and that's just something which can eventually be scary. Because it is, if you're not talking about, I don't know what's happening in 10 years, but I actually don't know really what's happening in 3 years. So it's this kind of, it's really changing. But I think, and I'm quite sure that you will have customer service teams, and I know this. They are from 100 people, and the fintech went to now 9 people. I mean, and the rest is AI. You know?
Yeah, but we also see Klarna cases where they said, hey, we go full AI, let's kill all of the customer support people. Then if we got okay, shit idea, let's bring them back, most likely at higher salaries, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's why it's sometimes hyped, you know, sometimes it's not real value. So I think this is where you need to be. It's also, I had this nice statistics before, it's like, out of 100 companies, 20% of the companies, they're using AI, and 80% are having prototypes and nice versions of first iterations, but they're not really using or integrating it. Yeah, so that's a huge number of companies still needing to embrace actually what it means for them, and listen to the conversation before, which is also very interesting, because I think it's not just optimizing what you have. It allows you to iterate and create new, rethink, re-challenge eventually business processes. So I think this is what it needs to happen on a larger scale. This is also a reason why I think it's not just up to the individual to use AI. I think that's a must, but it also needs to be at the top. You need to have conversations about developer value propositions, you know, and how things are changing. Yeah, so I think there is not just how do I develop code, but also how products work in my future, which is different.
I think it's an interesting topic, and looking at the time, maybe it's something we should discuss afterwards. How products will look like in the future, and for whom they will actually be built. Well, they will be built maybe for AI agents and not for humans anymore, because we have a completely different interface. But for that panel discussion, maybe that's also interesting food for thought for you. When I started that introduction with kind of dystopia versus utopia, right? And assuming we fast forward, it's September 2028, we're sitting here again, right, with a great crowd of people. And I would be super curious to get the understanding or perspective. What will the world look like? And I know it's very hard to predict, right? Because at least from my perception, the whole topic around AI is developing exponentially. And I mean, humans are really bad at understanding and exponential development. But maybe you still have an idea, starting with you, Christian. So what do you see? Will we have the one-person unicorn, or maybe non-person? We don't know, right? But yeah, what do you think?
So I believe I believe in humanity, in a nutshell. So I believe in people, and that overall we have the best for the future in our hearts, you know. And that's the reason why I believe the more the positive side of AI, and also that we will learn how to use it in meaningful ways, and there will be ways how it will be misused. Don't get me wrong. I think this is happening in war. This is happening in social media. This is happening in cybersecurity. So we'll see a lot of threats happening. There will be a lot of misuse happening for sure. But overall, again, I think as a society, we are also will change things for the better, and we will fix those things eventually over time. So I think that there is tremendous change to come. It's faster than ever before. I think this is also the case. It will happen on level of people. What I'm really excited about talking about the future is we're seeing now the changes in software and computers, and we have now, I don't know, I'm planning a hiking trip to Austria, and I actually used agents to check if the huts are also available. You know, so I didn't need to go every website and check if they have beds available, which was really great. You know, so I think we see this, and this is amplifying. But I think when we talk about hardware or biotech, I think things become even more real. So if you're talking about humanoid robots being here, then things will change even more drastically. So I think there's change. It's big. It's coming, but not at. I mean, we could have the same conversation last year, and it doesn't feel so different from last year. I mean, yes, Lovable has totally changed, but it's not for everybody has changed the world. It has changed, and it's changing fast, but not so swiftly. So what is really for me the call to action for all of us is so important is to really learn, go and really don't become this specialist so deep to being an assembler developer, but rather also learn into new areas, new fields. Make sure you're working on something which is meaningful for the planet, for yourself. Yeah, that's for me, and that's also how I'm convinced that we actually create a better future together. That's my speech.
Kirill, looking over to you. What's your take? AI build AI or software for AI? I don't know.
No, I mean, in 3 years, not I don't think a lot will change actually from where we are now. I think that there is this common misconception that in research, like things are exponential or continue to be exponential or linear, whatever the progress is. I think especially with the LLMs, the core architecture of the technology is reaching a plateau, and then nobody's looking into new architectures about AI, which can bring this differentiation. So I think that the thing that will change the most is that we will get a lot more information and data on what works, what doesn't work, which will be a huge difference. So there will be a lot of benefits for becoming more efficient, building a lot more things. This all I agree. But what I would say, like the way I usually try to look about things is like look what's happening, learn from other people's mistakes, collect the data, and data beats hype every time.
Felix, your direction, where's Lovable going to do?
I think I can probably keep it short, but I think that, like generally speaking, a lot of like what we discussed, right? Many more people will make use of AI. I think what I can already see is that like positions are like floating more into and like intertwining more with each other. So like product managers out of a sudden starting something, engineers starting something, marketing, sales. So I feel like looking at also like how companies are being structured will be more like, you just take on an initiative and you kind of execute it end to end instead of pulling in different parts of the team. So I think that's definitely going to change in terms of like how our companies working internally. That's also what we see working at us at our firm, but that's maybe the one thing. And then the other thing I just want to highlight, because we were talking about this like one person unicorn, etc. It will probably happen.
I agree. This will happen.
Yeah, but the things, what I find interesting is I think I'm like asking if that's so much fun, like running a company entirely yourself. Because honestly, at the end of the day, even if we have the tools out there, like what's still left is just like, building something with your friends and, celebrating success together. And so, yes, it will happen, but I'm not sure if I'm a big fan of it. And I'd rather like keep team small and like have at least one co-founder or so that I can jam with, and make use of all the tools. But that's just my take.
Yeah, thanks. I think it's an interesting perspective. Yes, I mean, if you run alone, then you're alone, right? And there's no one to. I mean, maybe AI is at a certain point then already where it feels like a co-founder, right? And it's just natural interaction. Think of avatars, etc.
Yeah.
And it's just like a video call away, right? But I think it's an interesting point of knowing that's not a human or doesn't behave like a human. Most likely, you will not be able to drink a beer, right?
Exactly.
With your AI companion. We're coming to the end of that session, and if I quickly try to summarize, I think we touched like plenty of topics. Then one takeaway that I at least took is, that's not surprising, I guess, but the whole product development iterations speed up like hell, right? You don't need software engineers, obviously, to start a company anymore, right? You can just do it yourself and maybe then add. I still took that kind of contradiction of what about large systems, right? And how to maintain that. And I think at least if I take that summary of your look into the future, it's still rather looking into utopia, not necessarily dystopia, at least according to what I described. I would like to say thank you for being here. We have 5 more minutes and a bit room for questions. So if there's any question in the room, we have someone helping with the microphone. Thanks a lot. Then maybe quickly raise your hand and someone will come to you. He went first. Thanks.
I have a question to Felix. Do you see some legal implications with vibe-coded applications? Because what happens if there's, let's say, a data breach on an aggressively fast-shipped product? And who's actually liable for this? Is it you, because you're sort of taking the place of the agency who shipped the product or built the product? And do you maybe see legal boundaries coming up ahead soon?
100%. I think, with everything, we are targeting non-experts, right? So non-legal experts, non-engineering experts, non-marketing experts. So whatever you put out there, we assume, or like we built the tool for you in a way that you can just use it and push something out. But it's our responsibility to like make sure that we guide you and educate you and like help you, like in terms of security and like legal topics, to just push something out that's also like, actually legitimate or like works. Just to give you an example, we just brought in one like head of security that will specifically focus on this, like making sure that with every Lovable project that's being created, we can ensure our users that there has been, like security reviews that ran, and then we try to help people as much as we can. That's a good question. But
maybe a quick follow-up question: is there a risk if one application is breached that maybe all of the applications can be breached?
I mean, honestly, I look at it a little bit like the App Store, right? Like you have like millions of apps being produced. I think it will be our responsibility to like improve our reviewing processes with things that are being pushed out.
Thank you.
Any other question? I mean, Krishna, I know your hand was. Yeah, I see.
I really liked the earlier comment about not needing a degree. I think attitude is everything. You have all the systems to learn. How's that work in Germany? And how do you vet a new candidate? Do you look at their GitHub submissions? How do you figure out that this is the right candidate?
You are at the university.
So I love this, and I think you should not study for a degree. Just to be very clear here, even though I'm in university, I think it's really important that it should be all about the skills. I think it should be about building actually community. I fully agree with the part of the social side. I think you don't want to be alone. And if you're thinking about the other way around now, how do I find the right people? I think the degree is not the thing you should be looking for. He has to check this box. Yeah, obviously a degree sometimes can tell you a little bit about maybe what kind of environment this person has been exposed to. Like I know a little bit if somebody worked for Lovable, what kind of environment he might been exposed to, especially if I work there. But it's like it just tells me a little bit about the person. But otherwise. And that's not a question for hiring people. I think we have a couple of hiring people here. How do you find the right people? For me, this is a personal thing. I look quite often for motivation, for values first. Do these people actually fit to the organization? Because I believe overall that actually, if you have the right people and they're motivated, they can actually learn a lot. And especially if you with AI tools. You cannot be anymore the expert in every field. But with AI, you can learn things quite quickly, which is really, I think, one of the exciting times right now. Yeah? So you want to have a person, in my perspective, who has this kind of, who is curious, who is able to learn. You want to have somebody who is a critical thinker, who just doesn't put things out for the sake of putting things out, but eventually checks, who can collaborate with your co-members and you can relate to him, and who eventually can communicate really well. So I think we are looking for these kind of skills, and then for sure you want to have somebody maybe with I would say an experience, a track record where you should be, maybe where you want him to have an experience, So that's then will be benefit, and you will hire eventually the person which has more experience and fits the values and the general attitude you want to have. That will be my perspective on recruiting, and it's not the degree only. Talking just one sentence about the degree, because I also care about this. And tomorrow we are exactly doing this. Yeah, we are focusing actually on skills. It's everything applied learning, helping you to build a network, and applying everything on your mission, because that motivation matters a lot as well. So much from my side. Yeah.
I see you smiling, Kirill, and for me it sounds like a contradiction if we take that 5 seconds or 10 seconds to put that on the table. Have to have it, because I think it's a good closing at the end.
I mean, I have a PhD, so I'm pro-education. But no, I mean, look, it's like with everything else, we have the talent team here. When you look for good people, you look for signals. So you don't know anything about them. So any signal that you can find that will tell you that person will be good at their job, you try to use it. And if you know that person went to a university that has good reputation and has a program where good people have, I take that as a signal. Now, that does not mean that people that didn't go to a good university, so both things can be true. That doesn't mean that people that didn't go to good universities can't be great? Of course not. It's just like you look at the various signals that you have, and then if somebody has like an amazing GitHub repo and they contributed to a lot of things, you use that signal as well. So you try to kind of get what you can.
Maybe a quick comment on this. I love how you talk about looking for signals. And actually what worked well for us is like, or also in like previous jobs, is when recruiting, like before you do an interview, to not look at their CV and not look at their LinkedIn, to not have an opinion already before you talk to the person. I think that's a better way to like look at signals and truly getting to know the person.
Thanks a lot. That was a closing sentence. I think it was also a very, very good addition. I think it was thankful that we take the time. Thanks a lot for listening. Thanks a lot for being here. Have a great party. See you.